It is my pleasure to welcome the next moderator of our next panel. Stephen Susalka is the CEO of AUTM. Stephen will be monitoring the tech transfer panel, discussing the impact of innovation in university culture and the best practices of academic invention and industry engagement, an incredibly valuable topic. Please help me in welcoming Stephen to the stage.
Yeah, that's fine. No problem. See?
All right. Bright is bright.
Lights are bright.
Very bright.
All right, welcome everybody. As was mentioned, my name is Steve Susalka. I'm the CEO of AUTM. AUTM is the tech transfer association that supports the development and commercialization of innovations across your campuses. So one of the great things about having meetings like this is we have a diversity of perspectives, opinions that really add to the conversation. So where you might see certain universities and you think about, their team, you think about a certain scientist, I see inventions. So when I look at UVA, I think about Adenocard, the leading drug to treat supraventricular tachycardia. I look at the University of Minnesota, I think, hey, that's the institution that developed the Honeycrisp apple. You're going to hear a couple of other examples coming up. When I see NC State, as you guys might have heard yesterday, I think of 1-MCP. That's the chemical that prevents ripening of fruits and vegetables. So we've got a huge amount of innovation in this audience. And if you actually look across the tables that we have here, we have some brilliant innovators that are coming up with groundbreaking science. Also in this room, we have barrier-busting administration members and leaders that are actually allowing those innovations to sprout on top of those campuses. What I'm really fortunate to have in front of me today are the third leg of that innovation stool, and that's the tech transfer professionals that are actually taking those innovations and turning them into the products and services of tomorrow. So we don't have a ton of time, but we've got a ton of content to cover. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves, and then, as I mentioned earlier, give you an example of an innovation that was developed on their campus. So let me just go down the line, and so Ken, why don't you lead off?
Thanks, Steve. I'm Ken Porter. I'm director of Invention College Park. We're the tech transfer office for University of Maryland College Park. And as far as some successes, you heard about it already with Chris Monroe talking about INQ. So that was, Chris was quite modest about that, but that's our unicorn. They went public in 2021 at a $2 billion valuation. And President Pines rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange that morning. But that's 2021, so that's old news. Just recently, we had an acquisition of a company that we're really proud of called Hazel Analytics, and we're proud of all of our companies, but this one we spend about 90% of our time in engineering and science. But Hazel Analytics came out of our Department of Economics, so we have 10 other schools besides science and engineering at College Park, and we're happy to have some success from the other schools as well. And so Hazel was born when the professor of economics Ginger Jen was at UCLA as a postdoc, and she and her colleague Phil Leslie started taking a look at the grade cards that are in restaurants and did a study of those. It's very localized because that's the way food safety is in the US, at least then, very, very localized. But they found that the restaurants that posted these grades increased their health performance, their health inspection performance. It was correlated with positive customer demand, and there was a decrease in foodborne illness admissions to hospitals. So that was a seminal paper, and that was 1999. The next year she came to Maryland as a professor and continued this work. In 2011, they decided to take these studies nationwide. So they enlisted the help of Ben Peterson, who was a computer science professor, to manage all of that data. And then in 2014, they decided to form a company, Hazel Analytics, and they did that with an MBA student, Arash Nasibi, and formed Hazel Analytics. They went on to become a global leader in food safety, eventually partnered with Yelp and collected information on 800,000 restaurants in the US. They were acquired by Ecolab, which is a $50 billion company in St. Louis, St. Paul, Minnesota. And Arash, the MBA student, continued leading the company through the acquisition, and he's now a VP at Ecolab. So really happy for the student side of that story too. And I'll finish with a quote from Professor Jan. Hazel Analytics is the direct product of decades of university research and a testament to the power of cross-disciplinary collaboration. We wanted our work to improve food safety nationwide and benefit public health overall. And this agreement with Ecolab will help us achieve these goals on an even larger scale than we thought possible. And her quote is well aligned with the one thought that describes technology transfer's prime objective, which is to create impact.
Great, and what a great example, and this is just one institution of the 100+ NAI members. And so now you see not only the development of those innovations into products and services, but you're also seeing economic development, INQ as an example. So thank you, Ken. Moving on to Steve.
Hello, Steve Nappi, Associate Vice President for Technology Commercialization at Temple University and also Interim Vice President for Research for the past year. I look forward to turning that over to a permanent vice president in about a month and getting back to innovation. In terms of our example, we've had the opportunity to work with a good diversity of innovation on campus, but one example really stands out to me, which is meeting with a cardiologist, and he treats venous thromboembolism, so clotting of the veins. And he said, I'm using decades-old technology. What if I could, while I'm at the site of the clot, expand, allow blood flow, and actually treat right at the site? So he developed what is a catheter line that incorporates a basket that he can mechanically drive and expand a basket right at the site of the clot, improve that blood flow, which has its own thrombolytic effect, but also deliver thrombolytics through channels that he designed right into the basket. So it's an infusion basket, hits the clot right at the site. So we started with Invention. We worked on filing a patent. We identified a two-person entrepreneur team, formed a company called Thrombolytics, and they went off, raised money. They were cited as one of the most capital-efficient companies. They did a fantastic job of really maximizing the intellectual property, the capital that they did raise, and 7 FDA approvals later, they are now scaling up for worldwide distribution of that catheter line. So, and the inventor, Riaz Bashir, Dr. Bashir, is the name on all of the catheters, so they're called the Bashir catheters. What I like about this hits to some of the roots and I know interests of NAI, which is it really took the university, it took federal funding to do some of the studies, the state of Pennsylvania, so the Commonwealth provided some funding to run some of the clinical work. They also were able to expand a manufacturing site within Pennsylvania, so local jobs, economic impact, local workforce, and now they're really at that build stage to produce this product and get it out to patients, and they've had amazing results so far. So that's the story.
Great, thanks, James. And another great example of a success story coming out of a university, and a nice reminder that not everything is pharmaceutical, right? We've got engineering, we've got all sorts of other types of inventions. This medical device is one that might, help you or your family in the near future. You can thank Temple University in the future. James?
Hello, everyone. I'm James Lillard. I'm a professor and the Senior Associate Dean for Research and Innovation at Morehouse School of Medicine. Show of hands, how many of you have heard of Morehouse School of Medicine? All right. Okay, great. Well, we're a freestanding medical school in Atlanta, Georgia, historically black medical school. We're approaching 50 years old. Comparatively small, private school compared to some of my colleagues. At any given time, we have 900 graduate students, so no undergraduate students, around $150 million per year annually, and spend about 50 to 60 of that is research expenditures. So you can imagine In terms of invention disclosures, it's at a slightly slower pace. It's a little comfortable. So, but with our focus on health equity and addressing health disparities, we've found a particular niche where a lot of innovation can happen. One that comes to mind relatively recently is a partnership we embarked on with Chinook Therapeutics. They're out of Vancouver. They are being successful in moving and advancing endothelin antagonists to market. Some of that technology came out of Morehouse School of Medicine, believe it or not. It's been a long journey. That discovery was made by one of our faculty that's no longer with us, Gail Newman, along with myself and others, some 12 years ago. So fast forward to 2020, successfully licensed the technology to Chinook. And they were great stewards, and it rapidly advanced. They're in phase 3 clinical trials. And just June 12th announced they're being acquired by Novartis for $3.5 billion. So we hope we can successfully exit with them. But that's one success story, and I'd like to share some others with you.
Fantastic, thank you. Again, another great example of success stories coming out of institutions across the country and the globe. And this is a great example that innovation happens absolutely everywhere. And it's commercialized when it's resourced appropriately. And so we'll get into that a little later in the discussion. Tatiana?
Hello, everyone. I'm Tatiana Litvin-Vechnyak. I'm the Vice President for Technology Commercialization at Georgetown University. Previously, I was the Associate Vice President for Innovation Ventures at Rutgers for 14 years. Georgetown, only 5 months. So I've been trying to wrap my head around the portfolio at Georgetown and learn all the amazing success stories. And the one obvious one that I will share with you today is Allegra. So Allegra was discovered as a result of studying Seldane, which was the non-drowsy allergy medication in the 90s that had really dangerous arrhythmias associated with it. And Raymond Woosley, who was at the time the chair of the pharmacology department, was called to investigate what could be the cause of that. And in the process discovered that one of the metabolites, fexofenadine, which is now Allegra, is the chemical that's responsible for the allergy relief aspect of that medication. Ultimately, the Georgetown Technology Commercialization Office patented that metabolite and the use of the metabolite as an allergy medication. And in 2016, that Allegra became, I think, the top-selling over-the-counter medication. But also, and more importantly, the result of that work led to FDA-improved regulations in terms of drug development and approval, and specifically looking at some potentially dangerous side effects of different medications that being approved. And if I were at Rutgers, I would tell you probably 10 stories off just out of memory that I've been involved with and that we've moved along and that we're incredibly proud of. So academia is most certainly a great source of amazing innovation, and I'm proud to be part of that.
Great. Thank you, Tatiana. So next time your seasonal allergies are affecting you and you take that Benadryl, just think of Georgetown, another great example of success stories arising from institutions across the nation and world. So when you think about tech transfer has really expanded its role within a university system. So now responsible for corporate engagement on the front end, for startup development at the back end. But really, if you think about the core of tech transfer, it's the evaluation, the protection, and the commercialization of intellectual property being developed across the campus by brilliant scientists. So first question I have for the panel is having that funnel as wide as possible on the front end allows for the capture of so many inventions, and some of which will turn into those products and services of tomorrow. So my question, and maybe I'll direct it to Steve originally, is how do you infuse that culture of innovation on your campus?
So I think of it in terms of I think, 4 key elements that were relevant to us. And we were a rapidly growing research institution. I think skyrocketed maybe at a rate of 7th fastest over the past decade. So it was important for the innovation team to be present, to be engaged. So I think of it in terms of engagement, alignment of interests, commitment, the commitment to protect, but also the commitment to develop, and then recognition. So on the engagement piece, we were invited into the School of Medicine, for example, and implemented what is an embedded staffing model. So we stationed one of our team members within where a large driver of the research was happening so that they were on site and present and there to really navigate, help faculty members navigate the commercialization process. Externally, we wanted to start to line up potential partners and networks, so we also hired a business development person to really start that ecosystem development process. On the alignment of interest, what I feel was a key driver was leadership alignment. So not just budgetary or upper chain of command, but deans. So deans signaling that this is an important activity across, for us, 17 schools and colleges was a significant driver. And in fact, a senior member that was just inducted yesterday was the dean of our medical school, had a startup company. Well, that had a significant impact. And he was a key driver of intellectual property. That had an impact. And even if the dean isn't filing patents and has a startup by their side, the fact that they would signal that to their faculty does have a significant impact for us in terms of that pipeline, in terms of that funnel. So alignment of interests also, to me, means helping researchers understand how innovation can translate back to them in terms of their career goals, in terms of their research goals, and so on. So one important aspect that we've been able to communicate is startups that have come out of the university actually represented about 1/3 of our industry funding line last year. So $5 million came from what is a portfolio of about 30 active companies to then fund the labs back where the innovation happened. Commitment, we went out to really secure institutional support to do proof of concept type funding, but also follow that technology development into companies. So where it did land into a company, Temple does have a vehicle to participate with an organization called Ben Franklin Technology Partners. So that's Temple dollars that's coming back from royalties that we've earned going to invest in the future opportunities. And then recognition. This is an area where not just about hosting a gala or that type of recognition, although that is important to shine the spotlight on our researchers and innovators, but also how does it feed into their performance matrix. So our School of Medicine worked with us, for example, to identify intellectual property activity for their faculty members, disclosures and so on. We report that on an annual basis. I actually see an email in my inbox, Steve, where's my data? Because they now consider that as part of the performance review for their faculty members. And then we expanded that with the Provost's office and supply that same data for all 17 schools and colleges. So again, it's now become part of the fabric of how we look at that scholarly output, and that's had an impact for us as well.
Great. Fantastic. And Steve, you hit a lot of different points there. A couple of just want to quickly highlight. And I mentioned at the beginning the importance of the barrier-busting nature of the leadership in this room. That allows and drives that culture of innovation. So it's both top-down and bottom-up. And so the things that you can do to support innovation on your campus is really going to have a force multiplier effect across the institution. And then, of course, Steve also mentioned the importance of recognizing that the culmination of the researcher's work is to get her technology into the hands of the public for societal benefit. And that can only be accomplished through tech transfer. So 2 great examples of the importance of why we do tech transfer and why it's important to reduce any barriers to allow that to sprout. So Ken, let me turn it the same question to you. And one of the things I want you to hear is you're going to hear a lot of common themes, but you're also going to hear different approaches depending on the type of organization that you're hearing from, and you might be able to bring those back to your campuses. Ken?
Thanks, Steve. In 2 words, strategic alignment. So we align our mission with that of the mission of the research enterprise at the university, which is to create and disseminate knowledge. And we align our objectives with the objectives of the faculty, which is to create positive impact on society. We execute those strategies by providing services and support. We find partners for research, which contributes to knowledge creation, and we patent and we license to transform research discoveries into products and services, which is a rather elegant form of knowledge dissemination. When we license to a startup and the faculty is an entrepreneur, we also provide a suite of services to support those new ventures. We provide mentors for advice. We match CEOs for leadership. We provide space for them to do their work. We lead in I-Core hubs. We talked about I-Core yesterday, and we have a hub at the University of Maryland that contributes guidance and some funding to these companies. We have quite a bit of access to funding in Maryland, and Artie's told you about the Maryland Innovation Initiative, and it's kind of like a pre-SBIR. Like SBIR, it has phase 1 and phase 2. Unlike SBIRs, it's offered their requests for applications 6 times a year. And those applications, we have paid staff to help faculty assemble those applications. And also very different from SBIRs, it has a 50% success rate, so 5-0, as opposed to 1-5. That would be more typical for SBIRs. We have an angel investment network, and we have access to 3 investment funds, including a 4th, Marks Osage Venture Partners that he told you about. In our history, which goes back about 30 years, we've created 125 companies. 50 of those are still operating. Those 50 companies have secured $500 million in investment. They've created 270 jobs. And among the leadership of those companies, 40% are minorities and 20% are women.
Fantastic. Again, a great example of how tech transfer really has multiple great outcomes. New products on the market, new jobs in the community, new reputation expansion for the institution. So thank you for that. If nothing else to add to that one, I want to kind of go down the next step, right? So now we've made that funnel wider. We've infused this culture of innovation. You're probably doing this on your campuses right now. All right, well, now you actually get those inventions. They go to the tech transfer professionals that we have that are passionate about driving those forward. How do you build an ecosystem to really nurture the development and really protection of that intellectual property? Because at the end of the day, a university has intellectual property protected generally by patents or copyrights, and it's that asset that's licensed to a company to develop into the next Allegra. So you need that intellectual property protection. It's a key element of the tech transfer process. So Tatiana, maybe you could talk about how you encourage this ecosystem.
Yes, I think effective partnership with outside counsel, developing a strong group of licensing professional or IP professional within the tech transfer office, and really taking the time to work closely with inventors is the key to all of this. It has to be this, a team of 3 at least to have a very strong strategy. And I think step 1 is understanding the landscape. So taking the time to do the prior art searching and to understand what are the different mines in the minefields so that you can distinguish yourself from what's out there from the beginning. And then working closely with good patent attorneys is critical so that you can so that you can develop a strong strategy, having looked at the prior art, having an understanding of how you're going to distinguish yourself, having considered where you're going to file in the future. Is it going to be an international filing strategy? And are you understanding of what the claims may or may not be patentable in Europe or in Japan or in other jurisdictions? And then, again, taking the time with the inventor who may or may not understand intellectual property protection or strategy or statutory requirements and explaining to them what's the difference between inventorship and authorship and why it's important to follow the legal structure. And having that regular check-in every time at every step of the process, convening them and knowing when to save money and when not to save money up front. That's that's been my experience.
Great, thank you. Anything else to add from the panel?
You know, I wanted just to piggyback a little bit. Something you said reminded me is actually some of the panelists from yesterday mentioned the I-Core program. So I set up our shop maybe 13, 15 years ago. And knowing what I know now, I think I would have all of my inventors go through that I-Core program, 8 weeks. They come out really understanding the landscape and where their technology may fit in the marketplace. But I just wanted to.
Real quick point. Tatiana, we just restructured the team, as you were saying, to really fill in at that very front end of innovation, because what I saw happen over time was that the team started to really follow the later stage deal environment. So as our startups were developing and the rounds were getting larger, the team got sucked down that path of activity, but what that created was a void in terms of being there to help researchers navigate at that very early stage. So we just launched what is an innovation manager position that is proving to be really helpful in making sure we're on the ground there and supportive of new innovation.
Maybe something we haven't talked about, but a very important function of tech transfer offices is research compliance. And we have a whole team of folks that help all of the faculty members and inventors comply with the terms of their funding agreements from which all these inventions flow. And I want to give a shout out to all the admins that support our work, support your work.
That is an excellent point. Actually, they're all excellent points, but that research compliance, the recognition that is an integral component of your tech transfer office. You need to make sure you comply with those federal funded awards to allow you to advance those innovations forward. So great. And we've heard about a number of different resources that are available to help support tech transfer. And so, they span from education to technology de-risking to intellectual property protection. James, maybe you can add to sort of the resources that you provide on your campus to support your innovators on campus and how you drive them towards innovation and support them in their quest.
Right. We have to make do with what we have, relatively limited budget, but what I've found recently is just how important some of the programming, training around tech transfer is just as important as patent filings. I mentioned the I-Core program, but there are other accelerator and incubator consortiums, networks that really gives the inventor, the student, the scientist insight into how to move a technology and what's going to be required to move things along. That goes beyond dollars and cents, and it's a lot of discretionary energy that will be that we're going to depend on from that innovation champion, if you will, to make do. And when sometimes that doesn't exist on campus, we've had 12 different faculty startups over the years with have been successful at SBIR and STTR funding. But I feel we've had the most success when we're able to partner with an established company, typically a small business. I wanted to leave you with one more success story. We recently licensed a family of 10 different patents, and 10 others are pending in this portfolio to a company called DevMar Manufacturing. It's led by a dynamic, exceptional, smart leader, Sharon Reynolds. A husband and wife team created this Jan Sand company, and they decided they're going to make their own products. So they partnered with Morehouse School of Medicine. We've kind of moved it along slowly, kind of make smithing an accelerator program for them along the EPA regulatory path that we're nearing market adoption, and it's really been an exciting journey with them. not sure that answers your question, but try to.
No, it's great, and it actually, again, is just an example of how different institutions, you know, the adage is, you've seen one institution, you've seen one institution. So you've got 4 different perspectives on how they've advanced tech transfer on their campuses. Hopefully some of these elements are helpful to bring back to your state, to your institution and advance innovation going forward. So I run a tight ship here, and we have 55 seconds. So I am going to ask a quick question to the panel that they don't know anything about, and that is, we have got some great administrators that support tech transfer in this audience. So can you each give me one sentence on what you wish VPRs would know about the tech transfer process? And so I'm going to stall for 2 more seconds, and then I'm going to turn it over to Ken and go down the line. So again, what do you want to share with VPRs to help advance the tech transfer process? If you want to tell them one thing, what would it be, Ken?
Yeah, we were just audited actually, and the points that were brought forth to our administration were that the compliance is so important, and that we mentioned before, and that the funding is the lifeblood of the research enterprise, and that we're an important link in that.
Great. Funding, compliance. Great. Steve?
I think tech transfer is perhaps narrowly defined for some. The actual process of commercialization and the value feeds into grant getting and competitiveness of proposals. And you're seeing increased agency input in terms of how they want to see results of the research programs translated to society. So think bigger in terms of the impact for commercialization.
Great. Infused through the entire organization. James?
There's one sentence. Dear VPR, this ain't easy. It requires money, a lot of time, a lot of attention, and will and determination.
Fantastic. Tatiana?
I would like more reward and recognition in the tenure and promotion process for innovation and impact.
Excellent. Fantastic. All right. Well, this has been a fantastic panel. Please join me in thanking our panelists.